Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week in Shul, we'll read the two Torah portions of Acharei and Mot-Kedoshim. These are sort of the heart of the book of Leviticus, and they start off with, in Parshat Acharei Mot, with the rules for Aaron for how he would, Aharon, the high priest, and everyone after him, of how they would do the procedures, do the rituals of Yom Kippur. But somewhat strangely, it starts with the pronouncement, Acharei Mot, Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe, Acharei Mot Shnei Bnei Aaron. God spoke to Israel after the death of Aaron's two sons, Bikarvatam Lifnei Adonai, Vayamutu, who came too close to God, or were too eager to come close to God, and died. So it's a very cryptic sort of a way to start out about Yom Kippur. You could say easily, well, we need the rules of Yom Kippur so that people wouldn't need to be punished by death anymore. We'd have a way of dealing with crime and punishment, but that doesn't seem to be a satisfying explanation. I think, in fact, within the deaths of these two boys is something very powerful, a lesson that is very powerful, and may relate not only to Yom Kippur, but to our everyday. The question is asked, why were these two boys, these two young men, killed? And there's a lot of explanations. Earlier in Parshat Shmini, it was reported that they brought a strange fire. We don't know exactly what that means. Some commentators say that they were drunk. Others say that they, actually, there's one midrashic line that says that they were being punished for Aaron's sins of the golden calf, which is very disturbing. But the one I want to focus on today is that they were punished because they taught Torah, or they administered the sacrifices in the tabernacle in front of Moses and Aaron. In other words, in front of their teachers. There is a famous teaching, the Talmud says in Eruvin 63a, that Aaron's sons did not die until they issued a halachic ruling before Moshe, their teacher. In other words, that it was their disrespect, their lack of humility, that earned them this death penalty. It still makes us wonder, why so much? Why did they need to be punished so harshly with the taking of their lives just because they taught in front of Moses and Aaron? And I think that the issue here that the Torah is trying to teach us, or one possible explanation for what the Torah is trying to teach us, is that the problem of Nadav and Avihu wasn't just that they taught in front of Moses and Aaron, not just that they made sacrifices in front of Moses and Aaron, but in fact they were resentful of Moses and Aaron. One midrash says that they were even more talented than Moses and Aaron, even more righteous, even more holy, and that is why actually they get so frustrated waiting for Moses and Aaron, or having to sit behind Moses and Aaron. They are so full of themselves, not wrongly according to this midrash. They are in fact that spiritually gifted, but that also becomes their frustration, because all they can do is look at Moses and Aaron and see what they have and how successful they are, and that causes them to be envious, right? That they want what Moses and Aaron have, right? And when envy comes to hostility, or becomes so strong that it turns into almost a hatred within us, that is called resentment. And we're focused on what others have, and we want it so badly, we come to resent it. That can be physical things, that can be abstract ideas like honor or time. Brene Brown, in her beautiful book, Atlas of the Heart, she's talking about resentment. And she says it's when so she's talking for her, she gets very annoyed frustrated when someone doesn't seem to be working as hard as she does, and she gets mad at them. She resents them for not working as hard as she does. And she came to realize, she says, that the other person's lack of work is not what's making her resentful, but her lack of rest is what's making her resentful. In other words, the focus on that outward person and disappointment in their behavior is actually expressing a disappointment in one's own behavior. She defines resentment as a feeling of frustration, judgment, anger, better than, and or hidden envy related to perceived unfairness or injustice. It's an emotion that we often experience when we fail to set boundaries or ask for what we need, or when expectations let us down because they were based on things we can't control, like what other people think, what they feel, or how they're going to react. It seems to me that the story of Nadav and Avihu, this tragic tale, was that they were so focused on their disappointment in Moshe and Aharon, whatever it was that they failed to do, that it wasn't passionate enough or spiritual enough or quick enough in their service to God or to the tabernacle, or their service to the people and how they administered justice. But the truth is, it was their own envy, hidden envy of their elders that seems to have caused them to act rashly and to look outwardly to try and correct what they thought their elders were doing, Moses and Aaron were doing, rather than to recognize their own feelings of envy, that they wanted what Moses and Aaron had, and that they didn't need to resent them, that they needed to do some work on themselves and understand their station and learn patience and find their time that would come and find a productive way to spend the time in between. And maybe this is why it's an introduction for Yom Kippur, because the point is that we need to look at ourselves before we look at others. We need to find what is ailing us when we feel that anger and frustration towards others, to look inside of us, to find our humility, to find our patience, and to see if we can't understand that maybe some of that anger and some of that frustration is actually pointed inward. And only when we deal with it will it go away. Until then, it can consume us, as ultimately this fire consumed Nadav and Avihu. And so my wish, as we turn to Acharei Mot, which is often linked with Kedoshim, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord, your God, is holy, am holy, is that we can look to ourselves to find that which is holy inside us, to find that spark of holiness inside us, and to fan that flame. And when we do, when we dedicate ourselves to that which is spiritual, that which is seated in our highest selves, and bring more of that holiness into the world, which I think is really the purpose of the Jewish people, only then can we be whole and release our anger and our frustration with the world around us. And then we can certainly act. Only then will we certainly be able to act as a positive influence in the world, bringing that holiness, that sense of the divine to others, and raising up all of humanity when we are at our best. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and lots of success in finding out what's ailing us so that we can see more of what is good in the world around us. Shabbat Shalom.